Today's Arakko Public Radio is brought to you by the Lotus Logos Endowment for the Arts and the charitable donations of the DaCosta family. We don't talk about the Night Seeds Foundation. Welcome to the 9th episode of Arakko Public Radio for the week of October 12th. We are the Casual X-Men chat show where we have none of the insider info and all of the reckless speculation you could ever want. I'm Rod, and this is the guy who still thinks we haven't gotten enough Nightcrawler content lately, my one and only co-mega mutant, Keegan. This week, we are talking about Immortal X-Men number 7, Legion of X number 6, Wolverine 25, X-Force 32, Axe Death to the Mutants number 3, Axe Eternals number 1, but maybe a little more about the other half-dozen books that are tied to the event, but not the X-Men. But first, are you ready to play a game?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay.
Right. Last week, we played First Appearances. This week, we're playing Who Died?
Ooh.
I'm going to give you 5 issue numbers and the year they happened, and we're going to see if you could guess who died.
Okay.
To help you out, they're in chronological-ish order. Uncanny X-Men number 95, 1975.
God. No clue.
John Proudstar.
Oh, I should have known that.
Don't take this as fact. I think that's the first important death. I think he was the first team member that mattered that died. All right, number 2. Same rules as last week. If you get 3, you win.
Okay.
Uncanny X-Men number 137, 1980.
Uncanny X-Men 19. Okay. Who could have died around then? No clue.
Jean Grey.
Oh, okay.
You might find a theme. They're all somewhat important to this event. X-Force number 26 in 2008.
X-Force? Okay. 2008?
It's going to blow your mind.
Would it be Wolverine?
No, Nightcrawler.
Really?
I was trying to fit in the blew your mind joke again, but I can't find a way to get the color in there and make it past tense. I can't do it. My brain fries as I try it.
So I've lost, but let's continue.
It's all right. Avengers versus X-Men number 11. We're up to 2012 now.
Oh, geez. Avengers versus X-Men number 11, 2012. Would that be... I'm still... Cyclops.
That was Dad of the Year, Charles Xavier.
Damn it!
It's all right, because you're going to get 1 point here. Death of Wolverine number 1 in 2014.
Is it Wolverine?
Yes. All right. So for our first issue, do you want to talk about the issue where Nightcrawler was awesome, the issue where Nightcrawler was awesome, or the issue where Nightcrawler was awesome but just for one scene?
The one where he's awesome.
All right. Let's talk Immortal X-Men number 7. This opens at the end of Judgment Day number 4, before the Celestial gives his big thumbs down to all of Earth. We see Nightcrawler being optimistic about their chances, while most of the council disagrees. Shaw and Frost consider taking bets to the horror of Xavier, and Destiny is uncharacteristically quiet. When Judgment is passed, Sinister suggests making an army of Magneto clones, and Nightcrawler realizes Destiny's hiding something. He bamfs her on a free-falling adventure where he convinces her to explain the future that she fears, and he sets a plan in motion. We already saw the first part of that, but we get more context for it. He takes Captain America through a long series of short teleports to have the showdown with the Celestial that's broadcast to the world. And mid-jump, he hands off a blood sample of Steve's to Magic. He also reveals Xavier is backing up Nightcrawler's memories, so he will remember every death, and there's a lot that happens this issue. Hope announces the next part of the plan to the mutants. 10% of mutants need to volunteer to stay and die on the island to trick the progenitor when, apocalypse happens. They have more than enough volunteers. We do see Goldball's Egg afraid, but they explain as the only member of the 5 who can stay and make it believable while still keeping the circuit going because they can take eggs with them. Sinister cracks a joke and Nightcrawler attacks him. Destiny and Mystique also stay behind to complete the illusion that they didn't know this was coming. Sinister decides to use his Moira reset just to find out his system's malfunctioning. We also see the Steve Rogers revival again. Then we get a badass montage of Nightcrawler dying on repeat, not even taking the time to get dressed. He's instantly teleporting into the Orcus base, hovering around Mars, on repeat until he successfully kidnaps Moira. He explains they need to work together this one time, as they need help hacking the Celestials' AI. He proves he's not lying by predicting when the progenitor is going to destroy that base, and the most terrifying alliance imaginable is sealed.
Oh.
This is my absolute favorite non-Al Ewing written issue of this entire event. This was so
Agreed.
much fun.
It was so good. It was phenomenal. It was a super good, like, just focus on Nightcrawler, which I've been dying for. But it
Absolutely.
also did so much for contextualizing a lot of the event.
This was the week of contextualizing, I feel like. We got so many pieces that we had been saying, like, oh, how does that fit together? That all got answered. And this issue was a huge, huge part of that. So where to start? I want to talk Sinister Sabotage. Was that just the Celestial blocking his resets? Was that Moira? Was that Destiny and Mystique? Was it just a coincidence that, oh, my gun's not working and apparently I have no other way? Like, you'd think he could like unplug a tube or something, but for whatever reason, he cannot reset Moira. Why?
That's, that's a good question. I'm not sure because I don't think it has anything to do with Moira herself, but maybe it's the progenitor.
But I assume this is going to lead into Sins of Sinister somehow.
Oh, probably. I have a feeling that this is the setup, like the setup pieces for Sins of Sinister being put in there already.
Oh, and we'll get to. I have another theory on a piece that's leading into Sins of Sinister, but I really hope we get more of an answer onto like what else was provided. It'd be really unsinister like to have just one gun in there, and that's the only way he has to kill her.
Yeah, and it would seem too convenient for it to be like, oh, it's just a fluke.
Yeah, definitely. Since we're already on it, I know there's plenty of Nightcrawler to talk about, but I want to talk about Destiny. What was she afraid of? If she saw one future where they could survive, why wouldn't she want to pursue that?
Right. I mean, unless it does something negative for her or Mystique.
That was, to me, that's the obvious answer. Like, I am assuming that it's going to be like, oh, but Mystique has to die in this path.
Right, and like she refuses to let Mystique die.
But with the various routes of revival and even just reviving in general, you'd think like mutants in general surviving and Mystique dying is still better than just all of the mutants dying and having no chance of bringing her back. But was it issue 4, issue 3, the one that had the Destiny roadmap where it had like 15 possible futures? Okay, so only 4 had Judgment Day on them. So essentially, we've eliminated 11 of the possible futures. I want to remind the 4 that were there. So there's one that had Judgment Day lead to the Nimrod extinction event. There's one that had it lead to the Empire of the Red Diamond, which then led to the Storm system. That's the only one that had like multiple things after Judgment Day. Then there was Judgment Day leading to the Broken Sword, and Judgment Day leading to a new Krakoa. My theory of those 4 futures, we're about to see the Empire of the Red Diamond followed by the Storm system, and I think that's Sins of Sinister. Because we know one of the 3 books is Storm centered. So I think we're going to see that future play out and then get reset, and probably the new Krakoa is going to be the final one, because that could be Fall of X, could be not the end of Krakoa, but the beginning of whatever the next version of Krakoa is going to be.
Right, and I mean that makes sense. The Empire of the Red Diamond, he has, okay, yeah, so that's probably right. You go Empire Red Diamond followed by the Storm system, especially since it's Storm in the Brotherhood.
Yep. That's my current theory, and we all know how my theories go, but
yeah. I wonder though, would Fall of X maybe be Nimrod extinction event?
It could be. Yeah, that's a good point.
I feel like that's the 2 most possible ones, right?
That's
is
fair.
The extinction event and then a new Krakoa, and Fall of X is almost a bit of a misnomer to misdirect.
Although, I don't even remember where my camera is. I'm like pointing off to the side. With all of the Abigail Brand stuff that Al Ewing's following, the broken sword could be referring to sword, SWORD.
That is a good point.
They're all still on the table.
Because in my brain, my broken sword brain was like, oh, Excalibur, that whole.
Yeah. I'm suddenly I thought I had like, oh, this is definitely the route they're going, but I was wrong. All four are on the table. So we're going to get into all three of the writers of Sins of Sinister in the last couple of weeks have written something that made me really happy that they're going to be writing Sinister. But this one also has me really happy that these three are going to be writing a Nightcrawler heavy event next month, because I really, really liked pretty much every line the Nightcrawler dropped throughout this issue. Probably my line of the issue, though, I think we only get through this if we're a little pissed. Sometimes good people have to get angry. Sometimes good people forget that. And that is when Professor X tells him, oh, I see you're using Logan's nickname for me. Like, you don't have to get me riled up. And, you definitely need to be riled up, Chuck. I love it. I love it so much.
No, absolutely. I love that in general. Just especially him walking in, calling him Chuck. Like,
Yeah.
that is such an attitude shift for him in general.
That was paired with, he gets to live every resurrection like in real time. So Nightcrawler experiences the pain and agony of death. I think we see a dozen times at least.
Yeah, and theoretically, I'd assume the pain of rebirth, it has to be painful.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and then the fact that he like doesn't even take the time to get dressed. He's got clothes getting materialized on him as he runs through the portal is such a great image.
So good.
But that's going to come back around, whether that's confrontation with Charles or just leverage. He uses those real-time memories to map the ship for Orcus, but I think it's also made really clear, like, he's using it to reinforce his own decision that the illusion of the resurrection protocols are bullshit. Like, there's this huge theme running through this issue of, like, we tell ourselves that we're escaping death, but that's not true. Like, we live through death. We're just not remembering it. And so I'm really curious. I know Sins of Sinister hits and Fall of X hits, so we're going to be moving really quickly. But I'm really interested to see where Legion of X, or whatever it turns into, goes as we deal with Nightcrawler becoming really even more disillusioned. He's always been the disillusioned one, but he's becoming much more disillusioned on the idea of resurrection here.
Absolutely. And I agree. I think it's just a really good way to almost like speed run a lot of it for him.
Yeah, like there's an irony in the fact that he's the most like questioning it, but he's also the one who has now experienced it the most by far. He's had those rapid fire.
Which, remember how we were talking about with the covers of the Nightcrawlers comics?
As he gets
like more demonic, and I was saying like maybe that's part of the resurrection thing. If he's being accelerated this fast, this quickly,
I think you have a theory that's slowly becoming more and more accurate.
I think so.
I am so mad that I'm on the same wavelength as Mr. Sinister. Do you recall me very emphatically saying, wouldn't it be an easy solution to just make an army of Magneto clones?
I do remember that.
I will say I'm a little less bad because at least my suggestion wasn't right after the dude died. Like, he was still alive when I suggested it.
Yeah, you weren't like, hey, he just made a heroic sacrifice and doesn't want to be brought back ever. Let's make an army of him.
How are you feeling about us teaming with Moira?
Okay, so like teaming with Moira and all of that, it's cool that they're making it work. The fact that they're making it actually work is really cool. I'm hoping that it's a way to kind of lead us away and fix the whole Moira being a mustache twirling villain. I'm
wondering if there's a piece of that, if this is him undoing some Percy characterization. I would love that.
Yeah.
I know we talked about it at least a few weeks ago with the Spider-Man issues. Like, to me, that was the piece of Krakoa that was falling apart. Was they completely undid a really interesting character and turned her into, like you said, mustache twirler. This I was shocked. I am compelled. Like, I am interested. I wouldn't say I'm all in on, like, oh yeah, Moira's back in the game, but Kieran Gillen kind of did the impossible in making me care about Moira suddenly.
Exactly.
I'm
Like
into
to
it.
do it in one issue, essentially. Like, okay,
Yeah,
let's see
definitely.
what's going on.
All right, let's keep going with Nightcrawler with Legion of X number 7. Framing narrative of this story most likely takes place during Judgment Day 4 or 5, though the story Legion tells goes all the way back to Judgment Day number 1 and X-Men Red number 5. The Celestial visits Legion on Arakko while he meditates over a volcano. After some back and forth, the Celestial asks how David thinks he should be judged. David decides to get its opinion on something. We flash back to the Hour of Uranos, including the scene where Nightcrawler takes Iska off the board by challenging her to a fight, convinces her to shake hands, and bamf! They're over the sky, over the ocean, just for him to yield. She wins, and then bamf away. Legion mops up Uranos' machines left and right before coming face to face with the man himself. We see the 10-second fight between them finally play out inside his mind, and they both realize if they actually duke it out, they'll just remove each other from existence completely. Not die, remove from existence. Legion was multitasking, of course, opening portals and fueling Nightcrawler as he moved as many Iraqi into the bubble reality as possible. Uranos makes a crack about him being a disappointment to his father, which breaks his concentration just for a second and gives Uranos the upper hand. Finally, Ghost Rider Banshee shows up and separates them as Legion is too important. Together, they defend the altar, though the gate is temporarily destroyed. By the time Legion arrives for revenge, Magneto and the Ring are already preparing to leave. Legion assumes Magneto doesn't trust him, but is reassured that he has to stay solely because he's earned Magneto's trust and has to hold the line on Arakko. David has to admit, though, he envies the hero's death and misses his friend. He asks the progenitor if he made the right choices and gets a thumbs up, which fails to reassure him. This was a really badass showing for Legion.
Yeah, I think this was super great for Legion. Did a lot of work, honestly made the wait kind of worth it.
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job with the framing narrative. I think it's still really obvious that wasn't the way it was originally going to play out, that we were supposed to get this closer in time, and they probably had a few extra pages of action in the middle, and they had to turn that into the framing device because of delays. But they made it work really well. It does a really good job of turning that 10 seconds that we were like, man, that made Legion look like weakling into, oh God, Legion's a badass. He was able to do all that other stuff, and he still held his own. Like, that's really cool because he went blow for blow. Magneto, we were already so heartbroken, and then now we see that he's also like the best Godfather ever. Like, he's a
Yeah,
better paternal figure than his own actual daddy.
that's just I was just like, man, he's really out here doing the most for everyone.
Yeah, which makes me worry. Maybe we're not getting him back as soon as we thought. Like, I'm gonna be really bummed if it's like a year before we see Magneto again. So hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully we get him back right away.
Yeah, it might be a while though. I feel like they're setting him up to actually be missed for a while.
Yeah, they're giving us a lot of like, oh my god, he was so great moments, and that usually doesn't happen when you get someone back right away.
Mm-hmm.
I was really happy to finally see Ghost Rider Banshee do something.
Yes, finally.
I really like the design. This isn't super X-Men related, but I don't know that I understand how the Ghost Rider mythology works these days because we've got in Midnight Suns, we've got Spirit Rider running around. We've still got main Ghost Rider and the Ghost Rider ongoing, and then now we've got Banshee Ghost Rider. So like, are these different spirits of vengeance, or is he just spreading himself thin?
I honestly have no idea. I'm very not up to date on Ghost Rider lore, so that's a great question.
If you happen to watch our or listen to our podcast and know a lot about Ghost Rider, please feel free right in. School us on. There's 3 Ghost Riders right now.
Yeah, because I would like to know. I want to know what's going on.
This book again just drills home for me. I know it's silly as we're wrapping up one event to keep harping on this makes me really excited for the next one, but Cy Spurrier is so good at playing with Kieran Gillen and Al Ewing's toys. I feel like the 3 are such a good brain trust. My hype is getting so high for this thing that we're not going to see for another 2.5 months.
I agree. They're a really good trio, and I would love to see them like as a trio handling Marvel events in general for a while.
Yeah, might be happening. I don't know because
Yeah.
well, we know Al Ewing and Rom V are doing the symbiote one next summer, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. Off topic a little, and I know we got a ton to go through today, so I won't go off topic too much. But I'm really curious if we're even going to get a big summer event next year because we know there's so many little events. I'm wondering if next year is like a breather year where we're going to get the like
Yeah.
smaller crossovers.
I
I'd be okay
wonder.
with that.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. I mean, unless Fall of X has some context that we don't know yet that makes it a bigger event.
Makes it bigger than it looks, yeah. Which would make sense if it's the fall of Krakoa.
Right.
Gotta talk Iska before we move on.
Yep.
She was again beat. The person she was up against made these victory conditions that were so narrow that like it could only give the situation they wanted. But also like she doesn't have to agree to the specifics of the rules apparently. Like you could just name rules and then be like, let's go, and then she has to take the challenge. Is it weird that she's been around for thousands of years? No one's ever played rules lawyer with her before. In the
I
span of what's Marvel time, like 2 weeks, she's had like 3 people do this to her. But for thousands of years, no one tried it at all.
I wonder maybe it's because she's just cocky in general.
Yeah,
Part of it might just be like who she has spent time with.
like the Arakko, the Rocky are so honor based or something. They never tried
Yeah,
those sort of tricks.
that kind of thing. Like I feel like maybe like just because of how the Iraqi are, they just don't really have that in them. Like as a culture, they don't think that way
Makes so much sense. It
because
just really
like
stood out to me, but that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, that I mean that makes the most sense to me at least.
Going forward, the next arc is done. Not, I think it definitely is. After this, we're moving away from Judgment Day because all we have is one more X Force tie-in. Tie-in. Um, so I'm really curious where this book is headed in between this and Sins of Sinister. What's Legion's role now?
Yeah,
Are we getting some daddy stuff first? Because I wouldn't
we
mind seeing him and Professor X head to head for a short period.
yeah, I mean that could very well happen, especially depending on when the Professor X Immortal comes out.
I haven't looked at that. I need to. I'm curious.
That might be a like a mini crossover between the two kind of
Yeah.
thing. But it'd be
Again,
interesting to see.
it'd be Kieran and Sai working together, so it'd be another good 1-2 punch. I really loved it. It was great.
Oh, I loved it so much. It's just one of those things where it's like it's the filling in, it's the filling in of details we've already kind of talked about a lot. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, cool. Now it's good to know.
But we also just have so many issues of reading this week.
So much.
All right. But I do think we're going from like most important to least important. So like I don't think we need to try to rush past anything. We'll definitely naturally peter off as we go.
Oh yeah.
Death to the Mutants #3. Star Fox is convincing the other Eternals that they have to switch from love to war and destroy the Celestials, but Zurus points out that's literally impossible because of the first protocol. Emma Frost volunteers to drive the Celestials and they wage war and lose. The Celestial destroys the resurrection engines, cutting off Icarus's possible return after he dies in the war, and issues the final command to the machine that is Earth: self-destruct, which it responds to with a no can do. We get a fun data page of them going back and forth, and it ends with the Earth telling the Celestial, come at me, bro. The Celestial does just that and begins an assault on the planet. Cersei, Captain America, Tony Stark, and Nightcrawler are strategizing in the Avengers Mansion about the assault on the Celestial, which is what we've been watching through the 3 Acts 1 shots. And Star Fox, Steve, and Nightcrawler muse about what winning and losing really looks like in this situation. Nightcrawler drops cryptic hints about friends who know how to hack, foreshadowing the events of Legion of X and further proving the really messed up release order of this event. Then Fastos realizes the machine is nearly completely corrupted and that it's going to self-destruct way too soon unless they reset it. He travels to Lemuria, deep into the bowels of the earth, while Exodus and Sin form a unique alliance bonding over poetry in an incredibly Kieran Gillen scene. And Phastos reaches the manual reset for the AI that is the Earth and resets it, completely erasing the personality it has developed over billions of years. I think it's really funny that I wholeheartedly thought at the beginning of this event that we were going to end up with two machines that have that fun narration, and instead we have zero.
It's so,
I was,
it's a
I
bummer.
was, I was so confident that pink narration was going to become Arakko, and instead it was the Celestial, and the blue narration just got neutered.
It's sad.
Uh, I will say, so there's like killing the narrator is totally a trope at this point. Like stories have been doing it for probably longer, but I know stuff from the 70s that did it. Out of every time I've ever seen that trope, this is the best execution. Like,
Absolutely.
Kieran Gillen has talked about how he actually wrote the three Death of Mutants issues as issues 14, 15, and 16 of Eternals, and it was Marvel's choice to turn it into Death of the Mutants, which makes so much sense. But that makes this a really powerful finale that essentially he created this amazing narrator, and in the end, we have to kill it to save the Earth. Is pretty brutal.
Yeah, no, I think it's really, really well done.
I do think overall I would have enjoyed this miniseries more if it had stayed the Eternals. Like there was a lot of like as much as we are an X-Men podcast, there was a lot of event noise that kind of got forced into these scripts where I feel like if we had just focused on the Deviants and the Eternals, they would have had a little better flow to the three issues. That said, it was really good. I don't regret reading it by any means. I think it was an amazing addition to the event. I think the event would hurt if we hadn't had Death of the Mutants.
No, absolutely. It's one of those things like it recontextualizes so much.
Yep. Well, and I didn't mention Crow had a couple great lines in the Crow, right? Yeah, Crow. So our boy Crow really got elevated by this tie-in trilogy as on the whole. Nightcrawler couldn't help but be great in 3 issues this week. He only had like the one scene, but he had great dialogue yet again. And then there was this cool, ironic synergy, and I didn't mention it when we talked about Legion, but there's a point where Legion mentions, like in the narration, he thinks about saying "Come at me, bro," and chooses not. And so then seeing the Earth itself actually does say "Come at me, bro" is this really like cool irony. And like I have no idea if it was intentional or not. I would assume, considering the two writers, it probably was. But either way, I love it.
I never even noticed that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I wish I had the exact phrasing he uses, and maybe I can pull it up while we're talking. But
I mean, like you said, again, Nightcrawler just being cool for his short moments. You know, he just gets to drop some good lines. But not only that, I like the whole Sin being into poetry, and there's like this kind of camaraderie with the poetry in it. That was fun. You know, you wouldn't think that the Mimitar would be.
yeah, it was a very Karen Gillan scene, but because we'd see the other stuff with the Mimitar, like it was tragic but funny and sweet. Like it had a real weight. It makes me hope that even if we never see the rest of the Hex again, that somewhere we get follow up with that because yeah, that was a really cool moment.
Yeah.
He's talking about when Uranus shows up, and he says, "How do you kick off something like that, eh? No word of a lie. I nearly said, 'Come at me, bro,' just to break the silence. Instead, we just stared until I realized, of course, that's all it would take." So it's just that balance of those two moments is really funny to me.
Yeah, and of course, that is all it took. If you resist, it will hurt, and you will still fail. Either way, you die, machine. Silence from the machine. Well, come at me, bro.
I that data page was great. I'm really mad at myself now. So I'll edit this back in up there, or we can just bring it up here. So there's a data page in Immortal X-Men that is like newspaper clippings.
Yes.
Kieran Gillen designed that himself.
Did he really?
That was like in his free time. Apparently, he laid out and. The Turtles #1 opens with Jean Grey doing Phoenix stuff and Sinister bickering with the group some more. Though they were called one-shots, this tonally and narratively really follows the last two one-shots. Tony grills Cersei about why she failed Judgment, and we find out through flashback that she hired Jack of Knives to trick Icarus out of revealing the secret of the eternal resurrection because she didn't want to lose her heroic image. Then we see Ajax receive her test. The Celestial asks her to prove her faith by killing every person who has ever died because of her again. She mows through the crowd, even killing the progenitor again when it points out that they had to destroy the original to create this new hybrid version. It tries to fail her for being too faithful, but she grabs its hand and tells it, not yet. She would still prove herself worthy, and it agrees to wait. It removes her psychic firewall, though, and promises her she will have full autonomy in the final battle to do as she chooses. She finally leads the team to the node, reaffirming that she has faith. Can I be real?
Yeah.
This series of one shots, the act, got more tedious for me as it went, and I think is where I finally got too much Kieran Gillen. Like, I feel like he overwrote by adding this, because we talked about how much he wrote for this event, and he wrote the main series, he had the Immortal tie-ins, he had Death to the Mutants, and I think all of those are the right call. I think adding these three was too much.
I can see that. There's really good stuff within these issues, but not enough to create like a whole series out of it.
I think if they had put the actual Judgment scenes into, say, issue 6 of Judgment Day, and maybe even add one issue to Judgment Day, the actual event, and just worked those scenes in, I would have liked it a lot better. These felt, for being told they were plot critical or story critical one shots, felt really tedious to me, and there was a lot of repetition thematically and just event wise. And it was literally just 3 issues of them working their way through the kaiju. I don't know.
I think especially because like it started strong and then it just kind of slowly trickled off. Because like I loved the first one.
Yeah, I think I liked each one slightly less, which definitely hurt. Like, if Iron Man had been the last one, I probably would have had a very different opinion because that one was pretty strong. You're right. This one probably was the most plot critical though, because we know Ajax is gonna have a big part in the finale, or at least that's the implication here.
Yeah.
You think she's gonna end up helping or hurting the cause of humanity or life?
Because it's Ajax, I feel like hurting.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, it's in Neil Gaiman's Eternals. Because Eternals, gender swapping, was pretty awful. So I could see him being pretty awful here too. All right, I want to talk about my favorite part of this issue though. Did you catch the big F you to Jason Aaron's dumb Avengers 1,000,000 BC Avengers thing?
I don't know if I did.
Okay,
Enlighten me. See if I can figure it out here.
So Ajax is seeing all the people she killed, right? So the first one is like a troll-looking family that died for her revival. But then the next one is this dude named Vart, who's like, hey, did you ever wonder how there was Avengers all the way back in 1,000,000 BC? Turns out my grandma fell in a chronal rift, and then before he can finish his sentence, she slices him down. But they just hand wave that stupid plot development is oh no, just that dude's grandma fell into a time hole.
Okay, I love that. That's fantastic. Yeah. I don't think I.
It was just in the montage of her being forced to kill people, so it didn't stand out that much. But it's genius to me because one of the things I feared most heading into this event was, all right, I'm really digging X-Men. I'm really digging Eternals. Oh man, it's gonna tie into Jason Aaron's Avengers, and other than the Celestial being their base, it hasn't really tied into his stuff, and I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't catch that until I was rereading it tonight, and I'm gonna do a TikTok dedicated just to that scene because that was so great. But to me, that was the most important part of that issue. So I got nothing else on Axe Eternals.
Neither do I. It was a fine enough story critical one shot, but it didn't do a ton for me.
All right. Wolverine 25. which I will tell you is a new entry and possibly my least favorite tie-in to this entire event. It opens. No, we had the Spider-Man issues; those were worse. Wolverine 25 opens with Wolverine narrating about judgment in various religions, and then we're quickly following Wolverine and Solemn approach the Celestial through the Arctic. The Hellbride's crew is attacked by that mini Celestial thing from the last issue. Like, I guess it's his avatar, they said. While Wolverine and Solemn move through like an ice maze. Wolverine hates his reflection, while Solemn loves his. The three end up all meeting up, and they take on the mini Celestial together. The Hellbride forgives them, and she and Solemn go back to Hell together to party. And the Celestial passes Wolverine, which he refuses to accept, falling to his knees angry. Oh, and then there was like in the back, because this was the 25th anniversary or whatever of the Wolverine solo book, there was like this really weird anniversary story by Percy that was just him hanging out in a bar reminiscing. So I didn't summarize that. Sorry.
Oh, that's fair.
I really liked the last issue. I was all in on like, oh yeah, we're tying back in Solemn. This was stupid. This felt so pointless.
Yeah, I didn't care for it. That's for certain. Honestly, I liked the back of the book better than the actual issue.
That's fair. Maybe I was just so mad at the main story that by the time I got to that little backstory story in the back, I didn't care. But
yeah, and I mean, like it wasn't anything important. It was just kind of a fun, look at Wolverine's life.
Yeah, absolutely. No, feel free to sing its praises. I'm not trying to bogart the conversation by any means.
I am certainly not singing, maybe lightly warbling its praises, but that's about all I got. Like, before when I was a young warthog, I really liked Wolverine better than anyone. So kind of seeing like the, almost like a greatest hits kind of thing, that was fun. But aside from that, it didn't do much for me.
I think what bothered me so much isn't even the story they decided to tell for the main story. Like, that's fine. You had to find a way to tie it in. Like I said, it goes back somewhat to the X Lives and Deaths like issues I had with. I just think Percy, he tries to write these deep things, but they come off so cliche. And like page where he's like, oh, judgment in Christianity and judgment in Judaism, and just like, I don't know that you needed to hammer that home in an event called Judgment Day. Like, the religious metaphor was there the whole time. Like,
and I want to preface this by like, I love these video games that I'm about to mention, so don't take it as a criticism of them, anyone. It's kind of like Percy played the new Wolfenstein games and like really loved when BJ Blazkowicz gets poetic, which I do love as well. And Percy wanted to do that with Wolverine because, like, BJ Blazkowicz was a tall, silent, or was like a silent, tough guy kind of thing.
I can see the parallels.
So he wanted to do that for Wolverine, except the problem is that Percy is not that guy. And I think that's what it comes down to, because I can kind of see that vibe, like in the way that he makes Wolverine like go on soliloquies. But
Definitely makes sense.
He don't got it. He don't got it in him to give him that. And I would love to see Wolverine get some BJ Blazkowicz like poetry internal monologue. But
oh yeah, with the right writer, that would be awesome.
Yeah,
and it went through the whole issue because like the scene of them in the maze and Wolverine sees his reflection and hates it, and Solemn sees his and it's like all like, oh, I'm so handsome, and it's showing that, oh yeah, one's a dark mirror of the other, but like, yeah, we know. We got that like a year and a half ago in X of Swords when we first met Solemn. We knew that they were like mirrors of each other. And then the Hellbride stuff with like her just deciding, no, we're cool now, and leaving, and why were they in the Arctic? And we're gonna get to in the next issue, Wolverine just goes home. Like, what was the point of going up to the Celestial, like beating the avatar of it, and then like he gets his judgment and he no longer wants to kill it? He's just like, okay, I'll go home to Krakoa. Bye. But it had so much, and I was gonna say maybe it was supposed to be like a 3-issue arc instead of a 2-issue arc, but it already had so much useless stuff in it. So maybe that's not it. I don't know.
Maybe it was supposed to be 1 issue, and then like they're like, we need to pad this out.
We need to, yeah. All right. Are you ready for X-Force?
Yeah, I
Let's
guess.
just keep going with the Benjamin first. I feel like the X-Force better, at least, out of the two.
Yeah.
Craven is stalking in the jungle with Deadpool's head on a spear, ruminating on how he fits in the nature of the world as a clone. He breaks all of the existing eggs in what's the egg room called where they do the revivals?
Just the hatchery, I think.
In the hatchery. And while he's busy, Deadpool bites off his own tongue and leaves it as like a clue. Later, Sage and Omega Red find it and realize the message that it was supposed to send. Also, Red eats some of the clone husks for protein. Beast pontificates on how he's irreplaceable, so it's a good thing he's still hiding at the point. Craven kills a bunch more mutants while trying to decide who their alpha is. Finally, someone tells him it's Wolverine. Finds Deadpool's head and is able to relay the message that it's Craven. But turns out he's too late. Craven has already kidnapped Beast and taken over the Shadow Room. Black Tom gives Deadpool a plant body and he attacks Omega Red for leaving him for dead. Wolverine shows up from the Arctic and is immediately called to the point by Beast, where Craven reveals it was all a trap. So next issue is going to be a holodeck adventure with Craven hunting Beast and Wolverine forced to stop him. Why was this a tie-in?
I was gonna say why was this an issue, but yeah, that's also you are enjoying X-Force more than me, which I'm so happy for you. This Craven's shit is not doing it for me.
Don't get me wrong. Much like you, I am not singing any praises, but I can really stand this.
Yeah, that's very fair.
That Wolverine issue was a trudge. I'm at least, and yes, part of it is the me actually liking Craven. I don't understand why this is now a 4-issue arc. Yeah. How are we just getting to the actual, hopefully 4 issues, hopefully next issue resolves it. How are we just getting to Wolverine actually having a showdown with Craven?
Yeah, it's a lot. I feel like it's getting drug on way longer than it needs to get drug on. And like you said, there's no need for this to be a tie-in.
Yeah. Like I said, though, I will throw out there, I love a holodeck adventure. Like,
yeah.
Those are my favorite Star Trek episodes. So I'm very into whatever happens next issue, which is next week.
Next week, right?
Yeah.
I did find it funny on the data page that was like the holodeck settings. There was the sexy time for Beast only.
That was really good. Speaking of Beast, how are we supposed to want him to be saved? Like,
are we?
Like, I feel like that is what Percy's going for, right? Like, we're supposed to be rooting for Wolverine here, but like, anybody really gonna be sad if Craven wins?
I'd be fine with Craven just taking him out at this point. Beast has become a monster.
Yes.
Like,
we're getting the Abigail Brand comeuppance. Are we also going to get the Beast comeuppance within this next year?
That would be cool.
If Krakoa does end with Fall of X, we need to, right? Like, they can't leave that arc dangling, so maybe that's where Percy's headed. Speaking of Percy, I really hate that it seems like every time we get one of his books, we get both of them. It makes it really hard for me to keep the two stories separate, which I guess they finally crossed over here because one led right into the other. But
yeah, and maybe that's it too, is like because they're coming at the same time, I'm having a hard time enjoying X-Force because so much of it is that tonal similarities that I'm just like, it's the same book, twice as long.
No, it is. It's the same main character is Wolverine. He's written the exact same. I can handle the X-Force a little better because there's at least other people in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're exactly right. I really like Omega Red in this arc, though. He's been a real high point.
Yeah, I mean, like in the fact that like he's doing a lot for it. I hate everything about him right now. The eating the clone husks, that grossed me out so bad. I was like, no, thank you.
Well, when he was like, it's not a clone, it's just protein, and he's like literally gnawing on an arm or whatever. So fun.
Yeah.
But horrifying. Do you have any other thoughts on X-Force?
No.
Then I am very excited to tell you we get to go around the Marvel Universe. And you know what? I'm just going to throw them all out there, and you can tell me if there's anything you want to say about any of them, because we've had a long day already. Fantastic Four 48, Captain Marvel 42, Axe Iron Fist number 1, and Gambit number 4.
They were certainly comic books that came out.
I will jump in. I genuinely really, really liked Die Hard starring Invisible Woman.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like. Maybe it's just with how much I dislike Dan Slott's run. I'm very excited for Ryan North to take over as a bridge arc. Great little two-part story. Had nothing to do with the X-Men. Really didn't tie in with the event much at all, other than Reed Richards' solution being, I think we should not deal with it. Like that part was really funny to me, and it was a really good showing for Sue Storm. But
Absolutely. I thought it was like I think that's why I'm kind of like it was a comic book that came out this week is cuz like it was a great story. Why does it have the Judgment Day stamp on it? Like I don't know. There's nothing about Judgment Day that matters. Like there was moments that I loved. I loved Reed going through like why his family is so important to him for each person. I love Ben Grimm so much that like I was ready to cry over Ben Grimm the whole time. Um, but
all right.
yeah,
Captain Marvel, on the flip side, tied into the event, but was completely uninteresting to me.
yeah, it was there.
Iron Fist, I enjoyed. It was kind of a nice follow up to the Iron Fist mini from earlier in the year, but pretty inconsequential to the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
And Gambit 4, I want to care about, but I
I
don't.
just can't. I can't care about it. I just can't. I don't got it in me.
Question of the week.
Yes.
All right. Last week we asked for your Monkey Paw X-Men book, and we got two answers from probably our only two viewers at this point. But you know what? We're gonna grow. We're on episode 9. By episode 20, we're gonna have 3 listeners. God damn it!
That's right.
The Broken Record, our boy, threw out there. My answer may seem like a cop out, but honestly, I think it would be a solo Magneto book, but one where they try to frame him as a villain. Oh, you know how to get to my heart, Broken Record. I know you're very outspoken on Magneto's heroics, and I agree. Giving him a solo series as anything other than a hero makes no sense to me. 100%. Stamp of
100%.
approval. Absolutely. And then Ron Catarasano threw out there, I'd go with a Colossus versus Juggernaut miniseries. Yes, 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 yes. But it's written by Rob Liefeld and drawn by Greg Land.
Yeah.
Follow-up question for you, though, Ron. Uh, who's he modeling? We know who Greg Land models is, how he gets his art inspiration. Who's he using for Juggernaut? Oh, I'm a little scary there. Do you have an answer, Keegan?
I do. So it'd be to have my beloved X Factor back. I would love to have X Factor back. This
I,
last
I was
iteration.
gonna say, and yours was the most recent iteration.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
With, my beloved Dakin and Fang now, and the rest of that crew. But of course, written by the truly horrific Joshua Williamson.
Do not speak that ill into this world. We are not getting Williamson into the X office ever.
No, never, ever, ever.
All right. So honestly, I think we're getting mine, which is you finally get a Laura Kinney book, and it's X-23 and a miniseries. But mine, if we don't go with that, would be announcing Al Ewing is running the next big X event. But then there's a day with this many goddamn tie-ins again.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Like so far, this has been the perfect pace. I feel like there hasn't been a week that has completely overwhelmed me. This was ridiculous. I know some of it was delays, but having an event that has 10 issues related to it release on one day is not okay. That was
Yeah.
ridiculous. Like that's a heavy month to have 10 tie-ins. One day was too much.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so this week, maybe less of a fun one, but I'm genuinely really curious. With Judgment Day finale coming up, I want to hear everyone's Krakoa event ranking so far. So you got House Powers of X, X of Swords, Hellfire Gala, Inferno, X Lives and Deaths of Wolverine. I want to hear how you'd rank those because not next week, but the week after is the finale. So I'm thinking, we kind of do our last final like predictions, which you could also send us yours, include that with your answers, and then we'll talk about like where our standings are now, so that we can then eventually place this on that list.
I like it.
All right. Next week, finally some breathing room. We get X-Men 16, which is Forge in the Vault, which should be so much fun.
Yes.
And the final AXE tie-in, X-Force. X-Force 33.
Thank God. The final of the tie-ins of X-Force.
I know, we probably could have done our final predictions this week because honestly, X-Force is not going to affect them much, but
Yeah.
I want to do a little bit of a write-up. I've got some ideas that I think are where it's headed that I want to put in writing.
Excellent. I'm excited to see them.
All right. Anything else you want to chat?
I think that's it for me.
All right, that'll do it for us. Make sure you like us, review us on all of the places, follow us, and if nothing else, tell a friend you might enjoy our little chit chats. I am that nerdy Papa Bear on all the socials. Keegan is Bulk Ranger. Until next time, come at me, bro.